Average Dude has something to say about...
Everybody, welcome back. I know I look rather ridiculous, my face right here, red spot. I cut myself shaving. Yay, go ahead and get a good laugh out of it. Dull razors, yay. Today's topic is anything but dull. I find it fascinating. Maladaptive daydreaming. Okay, we've all met these people. Every single one of us have met these people that walk around, they're looking in thin air. They start, their lips start mumbling. It's like they're trying to form words, and then they kind of put the kibosh on it and try to stop. They try to hide it. Occasionally they will, utter words out of thin air. We've all had those friends. We've all known those people, those family members who excuse themselves from a situation like dinner or watching a movie or what have you, and they, to go stretch or to get some fresh air, or a bathroom break, or you walk down the hallway and you see them muttering to themselves, and then they get really embarrassed and try to cover up that their heads were in the clouds. We've all known these people, because this is so common it's not even funny. These people that don't really connect all that well with others, these people that go for long walks outside, which is fine, it's good exercise, but then you watch them as they're walking down the sidewalk, and occasionally they're looking into thin air and they're having conversations with people that do not exist. And this was before the days of Bluetooth and cell phones and what have you, so you know that they're not actually talking to someone. We know these people. Finally, somebody put a label on this situation. Eli Somer, a PhD from Israel, coined the phrase maladaptive daydreaming. And what are the symptoms? Well, let's go over this. Pacing back and forth, like doing some repetitive motion over and over and over and over and over again. Vocal utterances or changing facial expressions. I already talked about that one. May become emotionally attached to the characters. Yeah, they create these characters and these elaborate stories. These daydreams are extremely detailed. I mean, whoo! But this one I want to focus on, this last little bit. Knows the difference between reality and the daydreams. So these people, this is important because these people are not schizophrenic. All right? History has been entrenched with situations like this. We have, it has been synonymous with excessive artistic creativity. Mozart was extremely creative. This guy was creating compositions when he was a little kitty kid. He was literally just pulling compositions out of his wazoo at a moment's notice, and he was doing it throughout his entire life, and he was considered brilliant. And he's not the only one. We've all seen on the news over the years where these exceptional people, these child prodigies, are so creative that they literally they're so overwhelmed, they have to sit down and find a creative outlet, and then boom, you have a masterpiece. They don't just create a first draft, they create a final draft. I mean, for the rest of us, we have writer's block. We sit around and take forever to come up with something creative. And these people just overwhelmingly, at one moment, boom, down. There's the painting, there's the music composition, there's the novel. It just basically creates or writes itself. Okay? So, what is it about this situation that we're so... because we keep bringing this up. In movies, the first time that I ever was introduced to this idea was a movie called The Never-Ending Story. In the 80s, a kid called Bastian who lost his mom died, and his dad has absolutely no idea how to talk to his son at all. He's all business. He doesn't even know that his son is drawing unicorns on his notepad. His son has to explain, "It's a unicorn, Dad." I think the next time that I remember going over, there was a short story by James Thurber. We went over this in school, in English class, in middle school. It's called The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. It's a short story about this adult guy. He's married, he's with his wife, and he's going through the day, and everything sets off a daydream, and he goes into La La Land. His wife's worried about him. She's like, are you okay? Is something wrong? And he gets irritated. He gets irritated with his wife because she's interrupting his daydreams. Does that sound familiar to some of you? I mean, oh my goodness gracious, and it never ends. And the third situation that comes to my mind immediately is a movie called Sidekicks. It was a late 80s movie, sort of a Karate Kid ripoff, about a kid who had some physical problems. I think he had asthma. His name was Barry, and he was always daydreaming about being a tough guy and being the sidekick to Chuck Norris, and they would face these situations and kick the bad guys' butts and rescue the girl in distress. Save the girl, that whole thing. But I remember there was one scene. He was actually learning martial arts from this Asian guy who sort of mentored him, sort of like Mr. Miyagi in The Karate Kid. And this dude, Barry, he was scared. He didn't want to admit that his head was in the clouds, because it's not something that you want to admit to. But he actually tried to throw the feeler questions out there to his mentor. Do you think dreams are okay? And the mentor was like, yeah, people dream when they're asleep. No. Like when you're not asleep? Oh, you mean when you're awake? And then there's that uncomfortable silence where Barry's really worried about what the response is going to be, and the mentor character ends up kind of partially smiling. He said, dreams are good as long as you're in control of them and they're not in control of you. That right there is the most mature response I have ever heard on the subject of daydreaming in my entire life, damn near 40 years. That's ridiculous. I mean, you've got to, because when we went over The Secret Life of Walter Mitty in school back in the day, everybody laughed and made fun of the character Walter Mitty. Even the teacher. Oh, that's great. Hey, if you ever felt like confiding in people that you daydreamed all the time, that just went out the window. How many people who probably have this maladaptive daydreaming situation back in the day when they went over The Secret Life of Walter Mitty and all their classmates laughed and the teacher laughed, how many of them laughed simply because everyone else was laughing? Talk about a situation that makes you want to hide in the closet, so to speak, huh? You catch my drift? And why would you want to come out of this closet when you're going to be made fun of? I mean, this is what fascinates me. Why is it that in the land, especially here in America, the land of opportunity where anyone can make their dreams come true, why is it that we never talk about daydreams? Why is it that the scientific community cannot take daydreaming seriously at all? This Eli Sommer, he did not get a whole lot of support. The scientific, the medical field dismissed it. And should it really come as a surprise? No. This is ridiculous. Why is it that this late in the situation we still can't talk about daydreams and people that daydream a lot? Why can't we study this? We know it exists. We've always known that this has existed. I mean, what is it about daydreams? With the scientific field, we study dreams when you are asleep. We study the REM cycles. We actually take that seriously. And we have psychiatrists who focus on what's going on in your mind while you're awake, but while you're actually paying attention, not necessarily daydreaming. So you have the scientific study of dreams when you're asleep, and you have the scientific study of what's going on in your head when you're awake. But when you combine in other words, the day and the dream, but when they're put together, daydream, why is daydreaming such a blind spot? There's something here. And I don't buy the whole argument that I've read online that it has to do with people were afraid back in the day because when we started using tools, we wanted people to be more productive. Are you kidding me? Really? More productive? What? That's something to be worried about? No. What is it about daydreams that we don't want to talk about? And this is why I do not... until we answer and address this situation, whatever it is that causes this blind spot or inability to face the whole topic of daydreams, we're never, ever, ever going to do these people who have this maladaptive daydreaming any favors. We're never going to do any serious studies. We have to address whatever this block is first. I mean, people, if you happen to have maladaptive daydreaming, I would recommend being very careful who you talk to about this. The world does not get this. I imagine for the most part when you tell people, you're going to see a blank look on their... Yeah, you're going to see that. They're not going to know how to react. It's a blind spot. It's not that that we're afraid of daydreams or it's anything overly special, but for some reason we don't know how to respond. We're just caught in a freeze frame, and you'll probably see people who, wow, that's interesting, and then they're uncomfortable with it, and then they'll change the subject, and they'll act as if they'll never want to talk about it again, but they'll probably remember. And that's actually the better scenario, because my guess is you're not going to want the negative reactions. And I would really be careful about the counseling bit, because we have a tendency of pushing a lot of psychotropic medications on people that do not need them. And here's my situation. If your situation is not being studied by science worth of crap, be very careful. I can see a lot of people with this being misdiagnosed by professionals and being given psychotropic medications to deal with schizophrenia and stuff like that. These people, maladaptive daydreaming, they know the difference between reality and fantasy. And I say, you do not screw with medications. If you did not feel suicidal before, medications can put that situation on you. You can start feeling suicidal. Be careful. Having said that, yeah, everybody, feel free to talk about this. This is weird. I have to admit, very rarely do I come across something that really fascinates me and I want to know more about. This is one of them. Everybody, take care.